The first sign that my life was about to turn upside down came in the form of an unexpected call from Mrs. Jenkins, my elderly neighbor. Her voice trembled with urgency, cracking just enough to set my nerves on edge. "Rick," she said, her voice low, almost conspiratorial. "You need to get here right now. Your wife, well, something's happening at your house. 2 men went in there a little while ago. This isn't the first time. I think you need to catch them red-handed." Her words hit me like a freight train, leaving my heart pounding in my chest. My wife, Jessica, had been acting distant for months, but I had chalked it up to stress, busy schedules, and the natural ebb and flow of a long marriage. Mrs. Jenkins's call planted a seed of doubt so sharp it felt like it was piercing my ribcage. I jumped into my truck and peeled out of her driveway, my knuckles white against the steering wheel. The thought of someone disrespecting my home, our home, made my blood boil. As I pulled onto my street, an eerie silence seemed to hang over the neighborhood. Mrs. Jenkins was standing behind her curtains, peering through the glass like a sentry. When she saw me, she darted to the door, pulling me inside before I could even take a second breath. "Listen to me," she hissed, her eyes darting toward my house. "Your 304 wife is home right now, and I saw 2 men go inside. They parked a block away, but I've been watching them." I felt like I was living someone else's nightmare. My stomach churned, my mind racing as the implications of her words sank in. 2 men. I repeated dumbly, as though saying it aloud would make it less real. She nodded. "This isn't the first time, Rick. I've seen cars like that here before, always when you're at work. You need to handle this." I clenched my jaw so tightly that my teeth hurt. For a moment, all I wanted was to kick the door open, storm inside, and demand answers. But a part of me, the logical, restrained part, knew I couldn't go in blind. I needed a plan. "Mrs. Jenkins, thank you for telling me," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. "But I might not be able to control myself if I walk in there alone. I'll call someone to back me up." I dialed my buddy Mike, a former cop, who answered on the first ring. "I need you at my house, now," I told him, keeping my voice low. "Jessica's there, and she's got company. Bring your sidearm." "I'm serious." Mike didn't ask questions, he just said, "On my way," and hung up. As I waited for him to arrive, I moved my truck to block the driveway so no one could leave. The thought of those men walking out of my home, smug and satisfied, filled me with a rage I could barely contain. I grabbed my own firearm from the glove box, checked that it was loaded, and tucked it into my waistband. By the time Mike arrived, I was shaking, not from fear, but from the sheer adrenaline coursing through my veins. Together, we approached the house silently, our footsteps crunching softly on the gravel. I motioned for Mike to take the side door while I went through the front. I placed my hand on the doorknob, hesitating just long enough to hear muffled voices inside. My pulse thundered in my ears. With one deep breath, I twisted the knob and stepped inside, gun drawn. The air inside felt thick and heavy, like it was charged with electricity. I moved quietly, my shoes sinking into the plush carpet of the living room. I could hear laughter, Jessica's unmistakable voice, followed by the deep rumble of a man's chuckle. The sound made my stomach twist into knots. I glanced back at Mike, who gave me a firm nod. Together, we stepped deeper into the house, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. This was only the beginning. I had no idea how much worse it was about to get. The closer I got to the dining room, the louder the voices became. Jessica's laughter rang out again, light and carefree, as if she hadn't a care in the world. It was the kind of laugh I hadn't heard directed at me in months. The bile in my throat burned like acid. Mike positioned himself at the side door, his hand resting on his holstered weapon. We exchanged a glance, a silent agreement to proceed. With my heart hammering against my ribs, I took one last deep breath and rounded the corner. There she was. Jessica sat at the head of the dining table, a glass of red wine in her hand, the stem twirling between her fingers like she didn't have a damn thing to hide. Across from her were two men, both leaning back in their chairs with the smug confidence of people who thought they were untouchable. Plates of half-eaten food cluttered the table, and the aroma of garlic and roasted chicken filled the air. "Jessica," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. The room froze. Jessica's head whipped around, her eyes widening for a fraction of a second before she caught herself. Her expression quickly shifted into one of feigned annoyance, as if I were the one who'd done something wrong by interrupting. "What are you doing here, Rick?" she said, her tone clipped and dismissive. "What am I doing here?" I repeated, my voice rising. I glanced at the two men, who were now watching me with lazy smirks, their lack of fear stoking the fire inside me. "That's a hell of a question, considering this is my house." Jessica rolled her eyes and set the wine glass down with an exaggerated sigh. "Oh, don't start. They're just friends." "Friends?" I barked, my temper flaring. "You mean the kind of friends you sneak into the house when I'm not home?" Her face twisted into a sneer, her mask of calm slipping. "You're being paranoid. Mrs. Jenkins probably called you, didn't she? That old hag needs to mind her own business. Don't you dare try to deflect this onto her." I snapped, my voice echoing through the room. "I know what's going on, Jessica. You've been lying to me for months." At that, one of the men, tall, with a thick beard and an arrogant air, stood up, brushing crumbs off his shirt. "Look, man," he said, holding up his hands like he was the reasonable one in the room. "We don't want any trouble. Maybe you should calm down." "Calm down?" The audacity of his words sent a surge of rage through me. "You don't get to tell me to calm down," I growled, pointing a finger at him. "You're in my house, eating my food, with my wife." The second man, shorter and stockier, chuckled under his breath, which only made things worse. Mike, sensing that I was about to lose it, stepped forward, his voice steady and authoritative. "I think you boys need to leave," Mike said, his hand resting lightly on the grip of his holstered gun. "Now." Bearded guy hesitated for a moment, glancing at Jessica for direction. She crossed her arms and leaned back in her chair, her expression a mix of irritation and defiance. "Fine," she said, waving them off like she was dismissing servants. "Go. I'll deal with this mess myself." The two men exchanged a look before shuffling toward the door, muttering under their breaths. I stepped aside, my jaw clenched so tightly I thought my teeth might crack. As soon as the door closed behind them, the silence in the room became deafening. Jessica stood up slowly, her wine glass in hand. She took a deliberate sip before speaking, her tone dripping with disdain. "You just embarrassed me in front of my friends." "Nice work, Rick." "Embarrassed you?" I repeated, my voice trembling with disbelief. "Do you even hear yourself? You've been sneaking around behind my back, and you think you're the victim?" She scoffed, setting the glass down with a loud clink. "Oh, grow up. Not everything is about you. Maybe if you weren't so boring and predictable, I wouldn't need other outlets." Her words hit me like a slap across the face. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. This wasn't the woman I had married. The Jessica I knew was kind, warm, and supportive. The woman standing in front of me was cold, calculating, and cruel. "You're unbelievable," I said, my voice cracking. "Do you even care about this marriage? About me?" She rolled her eyes again, her dismissive attitude pushing me closer to the edge. "Spare me the pity party, Rick. We both know this marriage has been dead for years." Her words cut deeper than any knife ever could. All the love, trust, and memories we had built together crumbled to dust in an instant. I felt like a fool for not seeing it sooner, for holding on to a relationship that clearly meant nothing to her. "I loved you," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I gave you everything. Maybe you shouldn't have, she shot back, her lips curling into a cruel smile. That's on you. I turned away, my vision blurred with unshed tears. Mike placed a hand on my shoulder, grounding me just enough to stop me from doing something I'd regret. Rick, he said softly. Let's go. This isn't worth it. He was right. It wasn't worth it, not anymore. Mike's hand on my shoulder was the only thing keeping me anchored to reality. My fists clenched so tightly that my nails bit into my palms. I looked back at Jessica, still standing there like she had the moral high ground, sipping her wine as if this was all just an inconvenience. Not worth it? I echoed, my voice hollow. You're right, Mike. She's not worth it. Jessica smirked. That damn smirk. It was as if she had won some unspoken battle, as though she had broken me and was reveling in the wreckage. My breath hitched, and for a second, I thought I might scream or cry, maybe both. But instead, a strange calm washed over me. I turned to Mike. Give me a second, I said quietly. He hesitated, clearly unsure if leaving me alone with her was the best idea. I gave him a look that said I was in control, at least for now. He nodded and stepped outside, closing the door softly behind him. I turned back to Jessica, who had now taken a seat on the couch, her legs crossed, swirling her wine lazily. She looked like she was waiting for the next move in a chess game she had already won. Let's hear it, Rick, she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. What's the grand speech? How I'm a terrible wife. How I've ruined everything. Go on, get it out. Her arrogance was infuriating. Why? I asked, my voice trembling. Just tell me why, Jessica. Was it money? Attention? Did you just get bored? She scoffed, taking another sip. Oh, don't play the martyr. You think you're some perfect husband, but you're not. You're predictable, Rick. You go to work, you come home, you eat dinner, you watch TV, and then you sleep. Day after day, year after year. It's like living with a robot. That's your excuse? I snapped. I worked hard to give us a good life. I thought that's what we both wanted, a stable, happy marriage. Well, you thought wrong, she said flatly. I need excitement. Passion. Something you clearly can't give me. Her words were like daggers, each one slicing deeper than the last. My throat tightened, but I refused to let her see me break. So, what now? Are you going to run off with one of those guys? Or both? Maybe that's what excites you, huh? Her eyes narrowed, and for the first time, her smirk faltered. Don't you dare judge me, she hissed. You have no idea what it's like to feel trapped in a dead marriage. Trapped? I barked out a bitter laugh. You could have talked to me, Jessica. We could have worked on it. Instead, you chose to sneak around like a coward. Coward? She shot back, standing up. You're the coward, Rick. You hide behind your routines, your job, your stupid sense of morality. You're too afraid to admit that maybe we were never right for each other. The venom in her voice stunned me. I had known things were bad between us, but I never imagined she resented me this much. If that's how you felt all this time, why stay? Why not leave me and go find your so-called passion? Because I didn't want to start over, she said bluntly. I liked the security. The house. The perks of being married to you. But that doesn't mean I was happy. Her words hung in the air like poison. I felt like a fool, no, worse than that. I had spent years building a life with this woman, thinking we were a team, only to find out I was just a stepping stone in her selfish little game. You're unbelievable, I said, my voice low. You used me. You took everything I gave you and threw it in my face. Oh, don't be so dramatic, she said with a dismissive wave. This happens all the time. People fall out of love. It's life. It's not life, I said through gritted teeth. It's betrayal. She rolled her eyes and picked up her phone, scrolling through it as if the conversation bored her. Are we done here? Because I've got plans tonight. Plans? My voice cracked with disbelief. Are you serious right now? What do you want me to say, Rick? That I'm sorry? That I regret it? Well, I don't. Maybe if you'd been paying attention, we wouldn't be here. Her coldness was unbearable. I felt the anger boiling over again, threatening to consume me. You're disgusting, I spat. I don't even recognize you anymore. Good, she said, smirking again. Maybe now you'll finally let go. For a moment, I just stared at her, the woman I had once loved more than anything in the world. I thought about all the memories we had shared, the good times, the laughter, the promises we had made. It all felt like a cruel joke now, a lie I had been too blind to see. Without another word, I turned and walked toward the door. Mike was waiting outside, leaning against his car, his expression tense. Well, he asked. It's over, I said, my voice hollow. You're sure? I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Yeah. I'm sure. As we drove away, I didn't look back. There was nothing left for me in that house. Nothing except shattered trust and broken dreams. The drive away from my house was suffocating. Each mile added weight to the realization that my life, the life I had worked so hard to build, had been a lie. Mike didn't say much, he didn't need to. He knew when to let silence do the talking. But my thoughts weren't silent. They screamed. I could still hear Jessica's voice, dismissive and cutting, replaying in my head. Maybe now you'll finally let go. Let go of what? The idea that I mattered? That the woman I loved wasn't the monster she'd revealed herself to be? My hands tightened on the wheel as I replayed her smirk, her cruel words. It was like she enjoyed the destruction she left in her wake. You okay, man? Mike finally asked, his tone careful. I didn't answer right away. I wasn't okay. I didn't even know where to start to feel okay. My chest felt like it was being crushed by an invisible weight. I don't know, I said finally. What do you even do when your wife? I stopped, choking on the word. When the person you trusted most is the one who stabs you in the back? Mike sighed, leaning his head back against the seat. First thing. You breathe. You're not going to fix this tonight. Hell, you're not going to fix it at all, not if she's like that. People like Jessica don't change. They don't even care that they're the problem. I nodded absently, my eyes fixed on the road ahead. Deep down, I knew he was right. Jessica had made it clear she didn't care about salvaging anything, not our marriage, not my feelings, not even the decency of an apology. We pulled up to Mike's place, a modest ranch-style home just outside town. He handed me a beer as soon as we walked inside, and we settled into the living room. The weight of what had happened still pressed down on me, but the familiar comfort of a friend's presence helped. So, what's next? Mike asked, watching me closely. I don't know, I admitted. I mean, I can't go back there, not tonight. You can crash here as long as you need, he said. But you need to think long-term. Are you planning to fight for the marriage? Or is this it? His words hung in the air. Fight for the marriage? Was there even anything left to fight for? Jessica had shown me exactly where she stood, mocking me, humiliating me, and treating me like a joke. The thought of trying to rebuild after that made my stomach churn. She doesn't want to fix this, I said finally. I don't think she ever did. Mike nodded slowly. Then don't waste your time chasing someone who's already gone. The next morning, I woke up on Mike's couch with a dull ache in my head and a heavy weight in my chest. It wasn't just the beer, it was the emotional wreckage Jessica had left behind. I scrolled through my phone aimlessly, not really looking for anything, until I saw a message from an unknown number. It was a photo. Jessica. With one of the guys from last night. They were sitting in what looked like a bar, laughing, drinks in hand. The timestamp was from an hour after I had left the house. My blood ran cold. I didn't know who had sent it, maybe someone trying to stir the pot, but it didn't matter. The image was burned into my brain. The betrayal was fresh all over again, sharper this time, because now there was no denying it. She wasn't even hiding anymore. She had moved on without a shred of guilt or hesitation, while I was left picking up the pieces. "You good?" Mike asked, stepping into the room. I handed him my phone wordlessly. He took one look at the screen and let out a low whistle. "Damn," he muttered. "She's not even trying to be discreet, huh?" "No," I said, my voice tight. "She doesn't care. She never cared. What are you gonna do?" I stood up, pacing the room. My mind was racing. I wanted to scream, to hit something, to make her feel the same pain she'd inflicted on me. But what would that accomplish? Jessica didn't feel anything, not remorse, not regret, not even shame. She was a lost cause. "I'm done," I said finally. "I'm filing for divorce." Mike nodded, his expression somber but approving. "It's the right call, man. You don't deserve this." As the day went on, I started making calls, to a lawyer, to the bank, to anyone who could help me start separating my life from Jessica's. But just as I was beginning to feel like I had some control over the situation, my phone rang. It was Mrs. Jenkins. "Rick," she said, her voice trembling. "You need to come home." I froze. "What's wrong?" "I've been watching the house," she said, her tone urgent. "Jessica's there, and there's someone else with her. Not the men from before. Someone new. And they're fighting. Loud." "Fighting?" I repeated, already grabbing my keys. "Yes, Rick," she said, her voice shaking. "It doesn't sound good. You need to hurry." I hung up without another word and bolted for the door. Mike was right behind me, his hand instinctively going to the holster on his belt. As we sped toward the house, my mind raced with possibilities. Who was this new man? Why were they fighting? And what would I find when I got there? When we pulled up, Mrs. Jenkins was waiting in her driveway, her face pale. She pointed toward my house, her hand trembling. "They're in there," she whispered. I didn't wait. This time, there was no hesitation, no plan. I stormed up to the front door and flung it open, ready for anything. What I saw inside was worse than I could have imagined. The door slammed against the wall as I burst into the house. My breath came fast and shallow, adrenaline pumping through my veins like fire. The sound of shouting hit me first, Jessica's voice, shrill and panicked, followed by a man's deeper, more threatening tone. The living room looked untouched, but the noise was coming from upstairs. Mike was right behind me, his hand on his weapon. "Careful, Rick," he murmured, his voice steady. "We don't know what's going on up there." But I didn't care. I took the stairs 2 at a time, each footfall echoing like a war drum. As I reached the top landing, the voices became clearer. "You're insane!" Jessica screamed. "Get out of here before I call the police." "Call them, then," the man roared. "Let's see what they think about all the lies you've been telling." The door to our bedroom was ajar, and I could see Jessica standing near the window, her arms crossed defensively. The man was pacing back and forth, his face twisted with fury. He was tall and lean, with wild eyes that darted toward the door as soon as I stepped inside. "And who the hell are you?" he snapped, pointing at me like I was the intruder. I didn't answer right away. My gaze locked onto Jessica, who looked more annoyed than afraid. "Who is this, Jessica?" I demanded, my voice low and sharp. "Another one of your friends?" She rolled her eyes, her hands flying to her hips. "Oh, don't start with me, Rick. This has nothing to do with you." "Doesn't have anything to do with me?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You've been turning our house into your personal circus, and now there's some lunatic yelling in our bedroom. How the hell does this not involve me?" The man took a step closer, his jaw clenched. "You must be the husband," he said, his tone dripping with contempt. "The clueless idiot she's been stringing along." "Watch it," Mike growled from the doorway, his presence suddenly reminding everyone that I wasn't alone. His hand hovered near his holster, and his eyes were locked on the stranger like a hawk watching its prey. Jessica threw up her hands. "Oh, for God's sake, everyone just calm down. This is Chris, and he's nothing, okay? He's just being dramatic." "Dramatic?" Chris barked, his laugh cold and humorless. "Tell your husband the truth, Jessica. Tell him how you've been playing both of us. Or should I?" My stomach dropped. I didn't know what this guy was about to say, but I already knew I wasn't going to like it. "What the hell is he talking about, Jessica?" She glared at Chris, her eyes narrowing into slits. "Shut up, Chris. You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I don't?" Chris sneered. He turned to me, his expression hardening. "She's been lying to both of us, man. Playing you for the house, the money, the stability, while she comes to me for everything else." "Shut up!" Jessica shrieked, lunging toward him. But Mike stepped forward, blocking her with an outstretched arm. "Stay back," Mike warned. "I'm not in the mood for games." My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I turned to Jessica, my hands trembling. "Is that true?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Have you been with him, too?" Jessica hesitated for the briefest moment, just long enough to confirm everything I didn't want to believe. Then she crossed her arms and jutted out her chin, her defiance flaring like a shield. "So what if I have?" she spat. "You're not exactly Prince Charming, Rick. God, you're so pathetic. Always whining about your feelings like that makes you some kind of hero." Her words hit me like a freight train. I felt the blood drain from my face, my vision narrowing until all I could see was her, this stranger who looked like my wife but spoke like a venomous snake. "You're unbelievable," I said, my voice shaking. "I gave you everything, Jessica. Everything. And this is how you repay me?" "Oh, please," she said, throwing her hands up in exasperation. "Don't act like you're some saint. You're boring, Rick. You're predictable." I needed more. Chris snorted. "And I bet you didn't tell him about the money, did you?" Jessica froze, her eyes widening for just a moment before she caught herself. "Shut up, Chris," she hissed. "What money?" I asked, my voice rising. "What the hell is he talking about?" Chris stepped closer, his lip curling in disgust. "She's been taking money from your joint account. Thousands. Says she needs it for the bills, but it's all going into her little escape fund." "Shut up!" Jessica screamed, her voice cracking. "You're lying." But it was too late. My head spun as the pieces started to fall into place. Jessica's sudden interest in managing our finances, the unexplained withdrawals, her increasingly erratic behavior. It all made sense now, and it was like the floor had been ripped out from under me. I looked at her, my voice breaking. "How could you do this to me?" Jessica didn't answer. She just stared at me, her face a mask of contempt and indifference. And in that moment, I realized the truth: she didn't care. Not about me, not about our marriage, not about anything we had built together. Chris turned and walked out of the room without another word, his footsteps echoing down the stairs. Jessica stood there, silent and defiant, as if daring me to make the next move. Mike stepped closer, his voice low. "Rick, let's go." I nodded numbly, my body moving on autopilot as I turned and followed Mike out of the house. I didn't look back. The ride back to Mike's place was deathly quiet. I felt hollow, like my entire being had been scooped out and discarded. Jessica's words, her actions, her complete lack of remorse, it all replayed in my mind like a broken record. And Chris, that smug bastard, had blown her lies wide open, exposing her for the manipulative person she truly was. Mike broke the silence first. "Rick, I don't want to push you, but you need to act. She's not just wrecking your marriage, she's screwing you financially." "I know," I said quietly, my voice lifeless. "I'll call my lawyer first thing tomorrow." "You need to freeze your accounts tonight," he pressed. "Every minute you wait is a minute she could siphon off more. Do it now." I nodded, pulling out my phone and logging into the banking app. My heart sank as I reviewed the recent transactions. Chris hadn't been lying. Thousands of dollars had been withdrawn over the past few months, some in small increments, others in large chunks. The most recent was just hours ago. "She's drained almost 10 grand, I muttered, my throat tightening. "That was supposed to go toward the mortgage." Mike clenched his jaw. "That's not just betrayal, that's theft. You need to shut her down." I made the calls right there in Mike's driveway, canceling the shared credit cards, freezing the joint accounts, and transferring what little was left into a separate one under my name. Each call felt like another nail in the coffin of my marriage. By the time we went inside, it was late. Mike handed me another beer and sat across from me at the kitchen table, his expression grim. "You're doing the right thing, Rick," he said. "It's gonna hurt, but you've got to rip the Band-Aid off." "I know," I said, staring at the table. "It's just, how did I not see this coming? How did I not see who she really was?" "Because you're a good guy," Mike said simply. "You trusted her. And she took advantage of that." The sun was barely up when my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. My stomach churned as I opened it. "You think you're clever, cutting off the money? You're pathetic. I'll get what I'm owed one way or another." I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. The audacity of her words was like a slap in the face. What she's owed? After everything she'd done, she still thought she was the victim? "Jessica?" Mike asked, looking over my shoulder. "Yeah," I said, handing him the phone. He read the text, his face darkening. "She's bluffing," he said. "You've already locked her out of the accounts. There's nothing she can do. Unless she comes after something else," I muttered, my mind racing. The house, the car, my reputation, Jessica had proven she was willing to burn it all down if it meant getting what she wanted. "Then you've got to protect yourself," Mike said firmly. "Call your lawyer, get everything in writing, and document every damn thing she says or does from now on." I spent the day putting out fires, meeting with a lawyer, filing paperwork, and preparing for the inevitable fallout. By evening, I was exhausted, but the nagging feeling that something wasn't right refused to go away. Then, I got another call. This time, it wasn't Jessica. It was Mrs. Jenkins. "Rick," she said, her voice trembling. "You need to come over. There's something you need to see." "What is it?" I asked, already grabbing my keys. "It's Jessica," she said. "She's been having some kind of meeting at the house. Men coming and going all afternoon. I think she's trying to sell things." "Sell things?" I repeated, a sinking feeling in my gut. "Furniture, electronics, anything she can get her hands on," Mrs. Jenkins said. "She's got a truck in the driveway right now. Thanks, Mrs. Jenkins, I said, my voice tight. I'll handle it. Mike insisted on coming with me again. As we drove back to the house, my hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. If she's trying to pawn off my stuff, I swear to God. Stay calm, Mike said. We'll stop her. Just don't do anything you'll regret. When we pulled up, there was indeed a moving truck in the driveway. Jessica stood outside, barking orders at two men as they loaded up the truck with boxes. I recognized some of the items immediately: our TV, the coffee table, even the wedding china we'd barely used. What the hell is this? I shouted as I stepped out of the car. Jessica spun around, her expression twisting into one of annoyance. Oh, great. You're here. Yeah, I'm here, I snapped. And you're not taking a damn thing out of this house. Actually, I am, she said, crossing her arms. Half of this is mine, Rick. You don't get to decide what I take. Half of it? I barked out a bitter laugh. You don't get to claim anything after what you've done. You've already stolen enough. She rolled her eyes. Spare me the theatrics. You're just mad because I finally stopped playing your little housewife game. I stepped closer, my anger bubbling over. You don't get to waltz in here and act like you're entitled to anything after betraying me. One of the movers, a burly guy with tattoos, stepped forward, raising his hands. Hey, man, we're just doing our job. If you've got a problem, take it up with her. Oh, I will, I said, glaring at Jessica. But you're not taking anything until we sort this out. Jessica smirked, pulling out her phone. Fine. Let's call the cops. Let's see what they have to say about my right to take what's mine. The threat caught me off guard. But before I could respond, Mike stepped in, his voice calm but firm. Call them, he said. We'd love to explain how you've been stealing from the accounts and selling off property that isn't yours. Jessica's face faltered for the briefest moment, her confidence cracking. She muttered something under her breath, then waved the movers off. Fine. Whatever. This isn't over. As the truck drove away, I felt a mix of relief and exhaustion. But one thing was clear: Jessica wasn't going to stop. And neither was I. The truck disappeared down the street, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the house was quiet. But it wasn't the kind of quiet that brought peace, it was the eerie silence before the next storm. I stood in the driveway, staring at the empty spot where the truck had been, my fists clenched. Mike stayed close, his presence steady and reassuring. She's not going to stop, Rick, Mike said finally, breaking the silence. You have to hit back harder. She's pushing to see how far she can go. I know, I muttered, running a hand through my hair. She's already taken enough, but if she thinks she can just strip me down to nothing and walk away. She's underestimating you, Mike said. But don't stoop to her level. Let's outsmart her. It wasn't just about money or possessions anymore. It was about pride, dignity, and reclaiming the life she had tried to steal from me. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a spark of resolve. That night, I worked late into the hours, poring over bank statements, emails, and anything else that could give me an edge. With my lawyer's advice, I started piecing together a record of Jessica's actions, every withdrawal, every sketchy transfer, every cent she had stolen. The deeper I dug, the more damning the evidence became. There were payments to strangers, vague descriptions on receipts, and even purchases for luxury items I had never seen. It painted a picture of someone who had been planning her escape long before the cracks in our marriage had even appeared. Jessica hadn't just cheated on me, she had plotted her exit strategy meticulously, leaving nothing to chance. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. It was another text from Jessica. You think you're clever? Blocking me from the money doesn't stop me. Watch your back. I stared at the screen, the words sending a chill down my spine. Mike, who was sitting across the table from me, looked up from his coffee. "Another threat?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, showing him the message. "She's getting desperate." "Good," Mike said, leaning back in his chair. "Desperate people make mistakes. Let her dig her own grave." The next day, I got an unexpected knock at Mike's door. When I opened it, I was stunned to see Chris, the man who had exposed Jessica's infidelity, standing there. He looked rough, like he hadn't slept in days. "What do you want?" I asked, my tone sharp. "I need to talk to you," he said, his voice strained. "It's about Jessica." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to slam the door in his face, but curiosity got the better of me. I stepped aside, letting him in. Mike stayed nearby, his arms crossed and his gaze wary. Chris sat down, rubbing his hands together nervously. "Look, I know you have no reason to trust me," he began. "But you need to know something. Jessica's dangerous." "Dangerous how?" I asked, narrowing my eyes. "She's been playing me, too," he admitted, his shoulders sagging. "When I found out about the other guys, I confronted her. She flipped out, said I was nothing to her, that I was just a tool. Then she started threatening me, saying she'd ruin my life if I ever crossed her." His words hung in the air like a bad smell. I wanted to hate him, but there was something in his eyes, a mix of fear and regret, that made me listen. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Because she's unhinged," Chris said. "And I think she's going to come after you harder than you realize. She doesn't just want out, she wants to destroy you." I leaned back, the weight of his words settling in my chest. Jessica had already taken so much, but if Chris was telling the truth, she wasn't done. Not by a long shot. "What do you suggest?" Mike asked, his voice cold and measured. Chris hesitated, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a flash drive. "This," he said, sliding it across the table. "It's everything I have on her, texts, emails, even recordings. She's been lying to everyone, not just you. She's been scamming people, playing men against each other, and hiding money offshore. If you use this, you can stop her." I stared at the flash drive, a mix of anger and gratitude churning inside me. "Why are you giving this to me?" I asked. "What do you get out of it?" Chris looked down, his jaw tightening. "Because I loved her, man. I thought she was different. But she used me, just like she used you. I can't fix what I did, but maybe I can help you stop her." With the flash drive in hand, I felt like I finally had a weapon of my own. That night, I met with my lawyer again, showing him the contents of the drive. His eyes widened as he skimmed through the files. "This is big," he said, his tone serious. "If even half of this is true, she's in deep. Fraud, theft, even conspiracy, it's all here. Can we use it?" I asked. "Absolutely," he said. "But we need to be smart about this. If she catches wind that we have this, she'll double down." I nodded, my mind racing. This was my chance to turn the tables, to take back the power she had stolen from me. But it wasn't just about revenge, it was about justice. Jessica had hurt too many people, and it was time she faced the consequences. That night, I sat in Mike's living room, staring out the window at the darkened street. The flash drive felt heavy in my pocket, like it carried the weight of every betrayal, every lie, every moment of heartbreak. But for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. Mike sat down next to me, handing me a glass of whiskey. "You ready for this?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, my voice steady. "It's time she learned you can't destroy people's lives and walk away unscathed." He raised his glass in a silent toast, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I smiled. The storm wasn't over, but I was ready to face it head-on. The plan was set. My lawyer filed the necessary paperwork to protect my assets, and the evidence on the flash drive became the foundation of a legal case that could not only stop Jessica but hold her accountable for everything she had done. It was no longer just about divorce, it was about justice. 2 weeks later, I found myself in a courtroom that felt far colder than any place I'd ever been. Jessica was there, of course, dressed to the nines, projecting an air of calm indifference. But her confident facade cracked and the evidence from Chris's flash drive was presented. Emails outlining her schemes. Texts to multiple men, stringing them along while mocking them behind their backs. Financial records showing the offshore account she had been funneling money into. And perhaps the most damning, a recording of her bragging about how easy it was to manipulate me. "Rick doesn't have a spine," she had said, her voice dripping with derision. "He'll roll over like he always does." Hearing that in open court sent a ripple of murmurs through the room. Jessica's smirk faltered as the judge's expression turned stone cold. Her lawyer scrambled to mount a defense, but it was clear they were fighting a losing battle. By the end of the day, the court ruled in my favor. Jessica was ordered to repay the money she had stolen, and any claim she had on the house or other assets was voided due to her fraudulent activities. But the victory wasn't just financial, it was the look of sheer panic on her face as the reality of her situation sank in. Jessica tried to save face, of course. She made a dramatic show of storming out of the courthouse, shouting accusations about how I had set her up. But no one was listening. Her lies were exposed, and the network of enablers she had built around herself began to crumble. Chris reached out to me a week later. "I heard what happened," he said over the phone. "I'm glad she didn't get away with it." "Me too," I said. "Thanks for stepping up. I know it couldn't have been easy." "Yeah, well," he said with a sigh, "I guess we both learned the hard way who she really is." In the weeks that followed, I began to rebuild. The house that once felt like a monument to failure became a blank slate. I threw out anything that reminded me of Jessica, her clothes, her photos, even the furniture she had picked out. Every empty space felt like a step closer to reclaiming my life. Mike, as always, stayed by my side. "You know," he said one night as we grilled steaks in the backyard, "this could have broken you. But you didn't let it." "It almost did," I admitted. "But I think I needed to hit rock bottom to realize what really matters." "And what's that?" he asked, flipping a steak. "Respect," I said. "For myself. For the people I let into my life. I spent so long trying to fix something that wasn't worth fixing. I'll never make that mistake again." Months later, I found myself sitting in a quiet coffee shop, reflecting on everything that had happened. The scars Jessica left were still there, but they no longer defined me. I had started going to therapy, reconnecting with friends I had neglected during the marriage, and even exploring new hobbies. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine again. That's when a woman approached my table, her smile warm and genuine. "Is this seat taken?" she asked, gesturing to the empty chair across from me. "Not at all," I said, smiling back. We started talking, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt something I thought I had lost: hope. Not the kind of blind hope that had kept me tethered to Jessica for so long, but a quiet, steady belief that the future could be better. Looking back, I realized Jessica had taught me something, even if it wasn't the lesson she intended. Betrayal is devastating, but it's also clarifying. It strips away illusions and forces you to confront hard truths, about the people in your life and about yourself. If I had any advice for someone going through the same thing, it would be this: don't let someone else's darkness consume you. Stand up for yourself. Fight for your dignity. And when the dust settles, let go. Not for them, but for you. Because in the end, the best revenge isn't anger or bitterness, it's building a life so good that the people who tried to destroy you become nothing more than a distant memory.